Hi, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 5 of the Yakking podcast, where we talk about life, business, and more. And we are bringing you tips and ideas for a changing world. And it's really changing right at the moment. So we have another interesting guest for you today. And I'm going to hand over to Kathleen to introduce her. Hi, Kathleen, over to you.
Hello, Peter, and welcome everyone. Yes, we do have an interesting guest today. I'd like to introduce everyone to Vesna Leonard. She is the co-founder of Works for You. It is a software testing company, and she in fact works with companies from all over the world. We will provide the contact information at the end of this podcast, but we also had a previous interview with Vesna a few days ago where she talked a little bit about her nomadic lifestyle with her family. And we thought today we'd like to do a deeper dive into what that means and how she got involved in this nomadic lifestyle with her entire family. So Vesna, tell us, how did this all come about and how did it work for you?
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Well, it's still kind of going, so we've just kind of slowed down. It started with another crisis, as I mentioned before, 2008 kind of hit, so it was on the heels of that. My husband, Mike, was trying to grow his financial planning business, and that was kind of up and down. And there were good months, and then there were not so great months where the mortgage was kind of tight. And we know what happened after 2008. So I had our third, and I started myself to work for a couple of companies remotely in Toronto for some basically piecework software testing. Mike became interested in that, and we started kind of growing the company ourselves. We were working remotely, the two of us. But, mortgage again was still there, and living in Southern Ontario was just kind of like that, hamster wheel. And we had heard about a gentleman in the States who took his family on the road in an RV. So I don't know, we just made a snap decision one day and took 5 months to sell absolutely everything we owned, and put a few small things in a tiny little storage locker, like memorabilia, kitchen stuff. And hit the road in January of 2011 with a tent trailer, headed across to the US and spent the winter in warmth. There were a lot of vehicle breakdowns, a lot of terrifying moments. We grew our business while we were doing this. I learned how to sell and market slowly. We came back and sold the tent trailer, took that money and bought tickets to Serbia, to Europe, and spent a lot of time there with a few more RV trips in between.
Wow.
Condensed version, but there's a lot. We lived in Hawaii. We lived in Costa Rica. There's like a lot there, but
I'm going to jump in quick, if I may. Being a sort of hands-on sort of guy, what size vehicle did you use to tow your tent trailer? Was it a pickup or a truck or a car or a van?
It was a Kia Sedona.
Really? Okay.
And we actually shipped that vehicle. It's in Europe right now. We shipped it to have it for road trips in Europe.
Wow, that's quite something. Really good. So, just tell us a little bit more about Hawaii. How did the Hawaii bit go? Did you take the vehicle to Hawaii?
No, so we stored, this was our second trip. So we had returned back from Europe. We were there for 18 months and we returned back. We purchased a Winnebago. So we drove to California and we parked it in a lot there and flew to Hawaii and lived there for a few months on the Big Island in a hippie village. Very life-changing. And if borders were different, I would be there right now. So
sounds good. Now, you said children, and I know when we spoke before, you were talking about, you used the term world schooling. Tell us a bit about how you kept the education system going on the road.
Right. So I started off with the mentality, because I knew some homeschoolers in the past. So I don't kind of use that term because for me, that's more strict schooling. And so I started off with that and found how stressful it was for our oldest. He was really keen on the specifics of getting a grade and all the rest of it. So after about a month or so, I really tossed that idea and I used the Canadian curriculum books from Chapters and Indigo. And we would do 1 page from a chosen subject each day. With each kid, it would take 15, 20 minutes, not even. And that's it. The rest of it was learning, when we're on the road in the RV, learning in the national parks, visiting some cities, but we're not really North American city people. We like European cities. So we spent a lot of time in national parks and learning the histories of that. And then whenever we were in places like Hawaii, Costa Rica, whatever, Europe, we would learn the languages, the local languages, and we would learn the histories from the people themselves, just spending enough time there to actually be immersed, not like a 2-week vacation or whatever.
Wow.
And we learned, it wasn't just the kids, we learned through the children. We learned things that obviously we'd never known, and just through their eyes was amazing.
Actually, that was going to be my next question to you, Vesna, is just, I've known a couple of other ladies who've done that with their families. I know one in particular who worked in the corporate world. She and her husband had some good jobs and had a really good income, but were miserable. And they decided this one day that they were going to sell everything. And they also had 3 children and decided to just leave it all, sell it all, and just travel the world with their children. And I just remember people thinking how brave of them to do something like that, how courageous. But also, it just got me to thinking, these children would be growing up with, so enlightened as to other cultures, and because having experienced it firsthand, not learning about those cultures in a history book. I'd be interested in knowing, through the eyes of your children, what did you learn from that? Like, what experiences did they take out of it?
Yeah, I think for them it feels normal because they're young. Like the youngest was 2.5 when we left, and I think that part was normal for all of us. I think the biggest thing was our cross Canada trip and learning about parts of Canada that it's kind of the same culture-ish, but still very different, going to all the territories and, just everywhere. That was huge. But for them, just going to a new place, going to a new country, it was like a blank slate, I think. I can't speak for them. But it was the same thing. Let's find the grocery store. Let's find out how to say these things, how to get, you know what I mean? And then let's figure out what the history is like, who the locals are, that kind of thing. But also, to your point about your friend, a lot of people have the misconception that, you need a lot of money for this. Honestly, you get rid of the mortgage and your stuff. It's a lot cheaper to live like this when you're staying in a place for a few months at a time and paying like local prices or a year or whatever, than it is to actually live here. And we paid off 20 years of debt by being on the road.
Wow.
Remarkable.
Yeah. Remarkable.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can imagine. I did a trip to Portugal and Spain late last year. I walked part of the Camino de Santiago, and I lived for 12 days on a budget of 25 euros a day. Okay, it was just me, but I couldn't believe that I could do that, and it worked.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you don't have that kind of, and I'm going to say Ontario because that's all I know, but that kind of North American Ontario lifestyle, it's absolutely doable. We were able to give the kids, something simple like swimming lessons, guitar lessons, drum lessons, just stuff like that we wouldn't or couldn't do here,
Yeah.
And I was just going to ask you, Vesna, in terms of the work that you were doing, and of course, because you are working remotely with these companies, how were you able to find a routine in engaging in business every day with these businesses so that you can keep on working?
Yeah. So honestly, we would and the kids got into the routine as well. And they also learned that. They learned about the business. They learned about the marketing. They learned about everything. They went to us or with us to police stations to get our visas done, to, consulates, to lawyers' offices when we purchased land, all that stuff. They did a lot of adult stuff. And the routine was usually based on what our clients' needs were. So if they needed to get a build out and I knew we really had to crunch down, for that whole day, then the kids did this, or Mike and I would pass off who's working, who's being with the kids. But it was really organic, and it changed sometimes from day to day. It wasn't solid. But we also did work 7 days a week, 10 plus, maybe 16 hours a day, depending. So, it's not just fun and travel. We were working each time. We held meetings under overpasses on the side of the highway.
Exactly.
Or, in the jungle in Costa Rica. So
that's very common with entrepreneurs, isn't it? You have, it's not like you're in the corporate world where you're working a 9-to-5 jobs. As entrepreneurs, we tend to put in a lot more hours than we would if we worked for somebody else. So completely get that.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in a quick one that wasn't on what I intended, but it's something that's been triggered by what you're saying. Vesna, your oldest, I think from the timeline you've been talking about, your oldest child has probably finished schooling now?
He will be 18 this year. He only started high school in grade 10. So he has, I think, 4 or 5 credits left that he will start in September just to do those credits and then head off to university.
So has the experience of being on the road for so long and this type of schooling given him a clearer idea of what he wants to do with his life?
I believe so. So he's actually wanting to go into engineering. He was also the one who headed up building a forge to smelt metal, and a boat out of water bottles in Serbia that he could sit in and row across a lake. So I think having that opportunity to do those things, which again, we wouldn't have done either financially or time-wise here in Ontario, hopefully helped him do that.
Good. I'm going to throw in a little personal experience of that I lived in South Africa for a lot of my life. And when my eldest son was 18, he was lucky. He was academically very good, did well at school. So I said, right, you better go to university. He said, Dad, I don't want to waste your money. I have absolutely no idea of what I want to do. And I don't want to waste your money. I want to go around the world. So I said, that's fine, but you need something. So I put him in a commercial college for a year, management and marketing. And then he worked for me. I had my own business. He worked for me. So I put him on a bus and I sent him north to Zimbabwe, the next country, 18 years old. My brother lent him a car and he then drove to the next country, 2,000 kilometers north, Zambia, to supervise loading of an export cargo I was bringing in. And I'd said to him, when you come back through the border, they'll give you a hard time because you're a young white guy. You're going to be driving a car. They'll suspect you're running drugs. Just keep your cool. Cut a long story short, he did all that, no problem. And years later, he now lives in Canada, of course. So when he was in his 40s, he said, Dad, that was the best education you could have given me. It was worth more than any university degree. So I hear what you're saying about your children. So that's enough about me. Kathleen, awesome. you got another question for Vesna?
Oh my goodness. It's just, I'm intrigued by and just blown away really at what you've been able to accomplish, Vesna, because I think your children are probably going to look back on that experience as just a once in a lifetime experience that they've had over what other kids have, so good for you for having done that. Is there anything else you can share with our listeners and viewers about that experience? And is there anything what was the hardest part of this experience?
All of it. You know what? It's just as difficult as it is to be here and do that whole grind. It's just in a different way, but you get to see so much more that pulls you out of it. So even though you're still doing the grind and you're still terrified when projects end and nothing else is on the horizon, what do? We band together as a family, etc. We never set off to travel. That wasn't it. We set off to kind of escape the mortgage and stuff. And especially the first trip when we ran into retirees and people who were doing this after a scare, after a health scare, one of them had a stroke or a heart attack and they decided to do it. All of them were massively inspirational in telling us, do this while you're young, do this while the kids are young, and keep going, don't stop. Because this was only supposed to be for a couple of months. And now it's addictive. Honestly, it's like, I can't stay in one place. I mean, now obviously we have to, and health is the most important thing right now. But yeah, staying in one place is tough. But a lot of it was hard.
I find it rather interesting that in all of the, you're not the first person who's gone through this and that I've heard of. And in all of the circumstances, in all of those situations, none of them have come back and said, oh my gosh, I would never have done that. They've all said the opposite. They've all said, no regrets. It was one of the most inspirational experiences we could have put our family through. So,
yeah. And we don't want to be here. Like, we're only here for the kids. Like, we came here temporarily, and that was just a trial for a few weeks, but the kids liked it for high school and university. But our plan, like, we still have all our stuff there in an apartment that we're planning on buying. So like, that's all in Europe, and we want to go back. Like, we're not done. If everything else goes well, obviously, but
one of the big, I know what you're saying. One of the biggest things I heard on my pilgrimage in Portugal and Spain, and there were many people older than me, sort of 70s and even some in their 80s, and just about everyone said, I'm enjoying this so much. I wish I'd done it years ago when I was young, so I could have walked further than I'm walking now. So that was a big message, don't wait, get on and do it, sort of thing.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Talking about staying in one place, I had a question for you. With your experience, and you're more knowledgeable now than a lot of people, the current corona scare with so many people stuck at home or working remotely and wondering what to do you think this is going to have a big impact on how commuting and schooling are going to change in North America and Europe?
Well, I certainly hope so. Now, I don't know about Europe because they're really, really strict with their schooling, and their schooling is way more intense, in my opinion anyway, than we have here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very. And watching the kids just even spend almost a year there was interesting. But I've been pushing this since we started this, and since it really changed our lives in ways we totally didn't expect. Like I said, this was not supposed to be like a travel thing. And I've been talking to businesses and trying to get them, especially here in Ontario, they really want butts in seats. The US is a little more open and has had fully remote teams for a while. And I think now I'm hearing from clients and from other people, oh, this isn't as difficult as we thought. And work from home is very different from fully remote. So it's a whole different mentality. And I think they're starting to kind of see that, oh, we don't have expenses of, whatever, the building and the machines or like whatever expenses are different, and definitely less, but also people have so much more focus, working in an environment that they're comfortable in, as well as, I don't know, like I said, opening it up to more talent that might not be as accessible, to a big city or to transit or whatever. I really hope it makes a change, especially for the working world. In terms of education has been online both for elementary and high school here in Ontario for years. I myself did TLC, I think, I can't remember what it was called, ILC, so Independent Learning Center, back in high school, where we just got a stack of papers and books and spoke on the phone to the teacher. That's been around for forever. And why it hasn't been, looked at more thoroughly here, I really don't know. And I do hope that changes, because again, you can reach a wider audience. They will learn so much more than wasting their time making the trip to school and the breaks and the lunch, and so much more effective and efficient, I really think.
Yeah. I hope it takes off both work and school because of the positive and beneficial effect on the environment of all those cars not commuting. And we're hearing all these stories about birds coming back, and what was it, dolphins in the canals in Venice and things like that. So it has to be good. My only concern is so many people buying throwaway plastic bottles of water from the supermarket. That's the downside. Need to sort that out. Yeah, wonderful. So quick one, we got a couple of minutes left, and I'm sure Kathleen will still have something to ask you. One that interests me, and I've just, as I said, come back from Europe, for Canadians or people in the USA, North Americans in general, who've never been to Europe and who want to start, where would you suggest they start at? Which country would be a good start for them to live a nomadic lifestyle?
That's interesting. So there are a lot of nomadic groups actually that I think on Facebook and elsewhere now. Like, there was a really small portion of us back 10-ish years ago, and now it's really kind of exploded. So people are actually planning it. And there are so many factors. And you can get a lot of information from people who are in those countries right now. Who will tell you, Prague has this and this, and you're able to find a job there, or you can work remotely doing this. Like, so many ideas coming from the nomadic community in general, that it's all individual. And you might think that country is great for you until you show up there, and then you think, oh no, wait, maybe this one, because each one is great for certain things.
Sure.
Not everyone, none of them have everything you want. But a lot kind of look at more Eastern Europe-ish. First of all, it's inexpensive. Secondly, there are big expat communities everywhere, and nomad communities that will help you out with visas, with like whatever, you name it, it's all there. And it all depends on what you're looking for.
Did you have to do a lot of research before going into these countries so that you knew this information ahead of time before bringing the family there?
Yeah, well, we did. It was hard. And like 2010-11 was very difficult kind of to do that research, and the group wasn't there to help. So you had to learn the language, you had to figure things out, you had to get a translator. Other countries don't have that, or most other countries don't have. So that little thing could really bite you and you don't even know it.
Well,
but
that's a great tip.
So big now but that was then. I don't even know, maybe it changed, but those were archaic laws that didn't include the internet and internet work. So
I'll throw a caveat in there right now, and that I would warn viewers who are thinking of traveling through the US and working remotely to check out those regulations, because New York and a couple of other states have clamped down on who can be considered an independent contractor. And many professionals who up till now have been working as independent contractors are now treated as employees, and the company gets fined. Yep. If the company doesn't give them benefits and all sorts of things, they get fined. If the individual contractor or independent contractor is not incorporated, they will have to be very careful of their status. Just a warning to anyone watching this video to check out what you do. You don't want to get into trouble. Thanks for that tip. That was a good tip, isn't it? Kathleen, back to you.
How are we doing for time, Peter?
We're running on 23 minutes, so we've got maybe 1 or 2 minutes we need to close down.
All right. Anything else, Vesna? Any other tips? I mean, that was a wonderful tip about the U.S. and obtaining a visa. Is there anything else in any other country that you've traveled in that something stood out and you went, uh-oh, we should have known this? Or anything else that would be a great tip for our viewers?
There's so many. I can't even, because we bought land in 2 countries as well. So there was a lot involved in learning it. But again, I think it's individual and what your needs are and what you're doing, but definitely like research everything, because you don't know what's legal, what's not legal from country to country. And just, I don't know, off the top of my head, it's kind of silly, but the roads in Costa Rica during the rainy season, and just coming to the end of the line on Google Maps, that looks like it's a road that goes through, but now has a massive river that you have to wade through to see if it, comes past your waist, and your car that you bought can actually make it. Like, things like that are just, then you have to turn around and drive 6 hours to get back to another road. Like, there's so much, and you just have to not assume that it's where you're from. There's so many differences everywhere, even in English speaking countries, like whatever, the UK, there's so many differences that you need to figure out and to make sure you're doing things legally.
Yes. Thanks, Vesna. Kathleen, do you want to close it up and leave some contact details for our viewers and listeners?
Yes, Vesna, maybe you can share with our listeners and viewers your contact details, so your website, and if they want to reach you directly, how they can do that.
Yes, that'd be great. So our website, not very well kept up, but it's worksforyou.com, WORX 4YOU.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Vesna Leonard, the only one there. Message me, reach out. And other than that, I think that's it. I could give my email, but that goes right through LinkedIn anyway. So
perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. This was fabulous. And we will see you next time.
Thank you very much. Well,
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.